why it's terrible to own a Corvette C8. You start the mid-mounted engine of your Corvette C8 and 595 horsepower roar behind your head. Your Palm Beach neighbors instantly know it's 6:30 on Sunday morning. And now, the great dilemma. You need to decide which scenic road to drive first with your American supercar that costs less than an imported Porsche. What an unbearable tragedy to start the day. The car is parked in your 3-vehicle garage, occupying the space where your exercise bike that you never use sat. Honestly, what an inconvenience to trade a dusty exercise equipment for a mid-engine supercar. You remember the day you bought it, after finally gathering courage to spend those $160,000 that were just accumulating interest in your bank account. At the Chevrolet dealership, you had to endure the terrible ordeal of choosing between all those vibrant colors. Torch red, rapid blue, arctic white. It's almost like choosing which ice cream flavor to get when they all look delicious. In the end, you opted for Accelerate Yellow, because apparently it wasn't enough to have an American mid-engine supercar. You needed everyone to see you coming from 3 blocks away. The salesman insisted on showing you all the features. You had to feign interest while he explained about the Z suspension mode that lifts the front to avoid scraping on speed bumps, as if you were some kind of amateur who doesn't know how to drive. And he still had the audacity to ask if you wanted the Z51 performance package for another $6,000. Of course you wanted it. What an absurd question. How could anyone live knowing they left $6,000 of performance on the table? Driving home was a nightmare. Everyone on the highway slowed down to look at your car. Some even took photos at traffic lights. A truck driver rolled down his window just to say, "Sick ride, dude." What an inconvenience to be forced to interact with enthusiastic strangers. And the worst part? You couldn't use even half the engine's power. Imagine the suffering, having almost 600 horsepower and needing to respect speed limits. The first few weeks were a test of patience. Your coworkers insisted on asking for rides, and you had to explain that the C8 only has 2 seats. Sorry, I can't take everyone to lunch today. What embarrassment having to leave people behind because of a supercar's limitations. Your boss even suggested you might be compensating for something with such a flashy car, of course, because it's impossible that someone simply enjoys driving an American engineering masterpiece. At the supermarket, you discovered the first major problem. The front trunk barely fits 2 grocery bags, and the rear compartment behind the engine, just a few more bags. How will you survive having to shop more frequently, or, God forbid, use your SUV for more mundane tasks? Certainly, this is an existential crisis that minivan owners will never need to face. And don't even get me started on maintenance costs. The first scheduled service cost almost $1,000. You could have bought a new iPhone with that money, or maybe a small fraction of one. It's almost as if high-performance cars require high-quality maintenance. Who could have imagined such a revolutionary concept? Fuel consumption is another daily drama. On highways, you get a reasonable 25 miles per gallon. In the city, maybe 15 if you drive as if you're taking your grandmother to church. And of course, the C8 requires premium gasoline. As if you weren't already suffering enough with California gas prices. What an injustice having to pay 30 cents more per gallon to feed your mid-engine American monster. Parking has become a daily adventure. You refuse to leave your precious Corvette in any normal parking spot, with the risk of careless people opening their doors against the bodywork. This means you now park miles away from the mall entrance, ensuring no one parks next to you. The cardiovascular benefits of this extra walk are just an unwanted side effect. What an inconvenience needing additional exercise. In Los Angeles, you discovered another tragedy, speed bumps. Despite the front lift system, every time you approach a speed bump, it's like piloting the Millennium Falcon through an asteroid field. You slow down to 3 miles per hour, activate the lift system, and cross diagonally while everyone behind you rolls their eyes. Oh, the burden of protecting your carbon fiber bodywork. On highways, the C8 is so stable at high speeds that you barely notice you're crossing the legal limit. The police, however, notice. Apparently, sorry officer, my car is so smooth I didn't realize I was going 95 miles per hour is not a valid excuse. Who knew that having a car that does 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds could result in speeding tickets? No one could have ever predicted such a setback. The sport exhaust sound is another daily dilemma. In tour mode, it's relatively civilized, but in sport or track mode, it sounds like you've unleashed some kind of mythical beast. The neighbors in your Newport Beach gated community have already sent 3 formal complaints. It's as if they don't appreciate the symphony of the American V8 engine at 6 in the morning when you leave for your coffee. What a lack of automotive culture. When it rains, those 2 times per year in Southern California, you face an existential crisis. Using your precious Corvette in the rain is like using an iPhone 15 Pro in the shower. Technically possible, but why risk it? So you drive your utility SUV that day, feeling a void in your soul for not being able to enjoy the 595 horsepower. First world problems. And then there's the luggage space issue. Planning a weekend trip to Napa Valley transformed into a Tetris-worthy challenge. 2 people, 1 small suitcase each, no extra shoes. Forget about that case of wine you plan to bring back. Honey, do we really need clean clothes for every day? It became a legitimate question in your life. It's almost as if sports cars weren't designed to be utilitarian. Another shocking revelation. Tire consumption is another financial drama you face. Apparently, high-performance tires with 595 horsepower don't last as long as your sister's minivan tires. What a surprise. And when it's time to replace them, prepare to spend $2,000. That's almost the price of a decent home theater system, or a month's rent in Manhattan. In a broom closet. Social interactions have changed dramatically since you bought the C8. Strangers approach to talk about the car when you're at the gas station. Is it really a mid-engine Corvette? Can I take a picture? As if you had nothing better to do than discuss the nuances of Chevrolet's paradigm shift to a mid-engine layout. And yes, it's a little exciting every time, but you'd never admit that. At restaurants, valets always put your Corvette in front, as if it were some kind of Ferrari or Lamborghini. How embarrassing to have your American car of only $160,000 displayed next to European supercars that cost 3 times more. And even worse, some people don't even notice the difference. Is that a McLaren? Someone once asked. The audacity of confusing your C8 with a car that cost $500,000. What a terrible insult to your good taste and fiscal sensibility. Traveling by Corvette has its own unique challenges. When you finally decided to take that trip along the Pacific Coast Highway to San Francisco, you discovered that the navigation system was so intuitive it almost eliminated all the adventure of getting lost. It's like having your own Iron Man Jarvis, only without the ability to build armor when your car breaks down in the middle of the Golden Gate Bridge. What a disappointment not being able to get romantically lost on California's coastal roads. And the adaptive cruise control mode? It practically drives the car for you on long stretches of road. What boredom having technology that makes long-distance driving less tiring. You paid almost $200,000 with all the options for the pleasure of driving, and now the car wants to do it for you. It's like buying a state-of-the-art treadmill that walks by itself. What's the fun in that? Worst of all are the constant model updates. You barely had time to brag about your C8 Stingray to all your friends when Chevrolet announced the Z06 with an incredible 670 horsepower, and now there's the E-Ray Hybrid with all-wheel drive. It's as if General Motors is personally trying to make your supercar obsolete every 12 months. What a low blow. How can you maintain your country club king status when there's always a more powerful new model on the horizon? Resale value is another nightmare that keeps you up at night. Unlike some European cars that depreciate 50% as soon as they leave the dealership, the damn Corvette is holding its value surprisingly well. This means you can't justify trading it for a newer model because it makes financial sense. What an inconvenience to have a car that's a good investment. How will you explain to your wife that you need the new Z06 when your current C8 has barely lost value? And don't even get me started on street recognition. Driving a yellow Corvette C8 in Beverly Hills is like piloting an X-Wing on Earth. Everyone looks, points, and wants to talk about it. Is it really as fast as they say? How's the mid-engine? Can I hear the engine? Wait. It's as if you've involuntarily become a Chevrolet ambassador. Isn't that what their marketing department was for? Insurance costs are another small inconvenience. Apparently, insurance companies think a car that can reach 194 miles per hour represents some kind of risk. What an outdated concept. Of course you only use all that power on closed tracks, never on public highways, especially not that time at 3 in the morning on Interstate 10 when there was no one around. The annual insurance premium is just a few $1,000s more than a normal car, practically the price of a daily gourmet coffee for a year. What a sacrifice. Then there's the exclusivity issue. When the C8 launched, it was almost impossible to find one without paying markup. You waited patiently 6 months for your order. Now, you see at least one per week in your area. At the last Cars and Coffee meet in Malibu, there were 3 parked side by side. The horror of having your American supercar become almost common. It's almost as if Chevrolet actually wanted to sell many of them. What a radical business strategy. Preventive maintenance is another cross you bear. Your Corvette needs premium synthetic oil, which costs 3 times more than regular oil. The high-performance brakes make a strange noise if not used vigorously regularly, which means you're forced to accelerate and brake hard at least once a week. How terrible having to enjoy all your car's power periodically to keep the brakes in good condition. It's practically a medical prescription. And when you finally take the C8 to the track, as recommended by Chevrolet, well, then you discover that your $160,000 supercar is actually incredible. It holds corners as if glued to the asphalt. It accelerates as if propelled by all the power of Mount Olympus. It brakes as if time and space were mere suggestions. And the sound? It's like the automotive gods are singing directly into your ears. The big problem with all this? Now you're addicted. Every minute that passes without being on a track feels like a waste of your car's potential. What an existential dilemma to live with. In summary, being a Corvette C8 owner is a terrible burden you carry bravely day after day. The admiring stares, the breathtaking acceleration, the glorious roar of the V8 engine. All these are burdens you bear silently, with only occasional Instagram posts to document your ongoing suffering. Between speeding tickets, maintenance costs, and the constant threat of an even better new model on the horizon, it's truly a life of afflictions. But you persevere, because someone needs to make these sacrifices. Someone needs to drive these relatively affordable American supercars and show the world that yes, you too can suffer with 595 horsepower behind your seat. See you in the next video where I'll talk about another vehicle of personal martyrdom. Until next time, and remember, speed only on the track, at least when there are cops around.